And I think we're live.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, everybody. I have a few people already in the waiting room. Some people are joining me this morning in Zoom, and some of you I know are joining on live stream. Good morning, Toby. Lovely to see some faces. Morning. We've got a few people joining. Morning, Bernie. Lovely to see you. Oh, my daughter suggested, because we did our last live stream without me being able to see anybody, that those of you who subscribe to my bulletin should be able to do this in Zoom, and then we can actually talk to each other. So thank you, Hannah. Great suggestion. Lovely to see some familiar faces and some new ones. We are going to get started in a couple of minutes. I hope everybody can hear me. We're just letting people in. I will be sharing my screen with you today, but I will every now and then stop sharing and pop over and have a chat with people. Hopefully you got the downloadable worksheets that are usable today. Brilliant, thank you, Bernie. If you didn't, I'm going to ask Hannah if there's any way we can share the link to those in the chat during the session, please. And if you do have questions and you don't want to ask, but you'd like to pop them in the chat, do that as we're going through, by all means. Oh, we've got sunshine this morning, which is just, honestly, we've had so much sunshine in Wales, I think I've moved countries. It's all
I'm only 11 miles away, no sunshine here.
No, oh, sorry, hun. Well, we've still got it here over this side of the mountain. It has been glorious, and it is quite funny because honestly, to have had this number of weeks with good weather in Wales is something people literally can't stop talking about. I'm not really surprised. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, find the right screen to share with you. There we go. And I'm going to start my slideshow from the beginning. It's always a jolly good place to start. There we go. So good morning, everybody. Really lovely to see so many of you joining live. That's always fabulous. Can I ask those of you who are on Zoom to please mute yourselves while I'm presenting, just because it is being recorded and it will pick up every little sound. We're going to talk today about establishing brand you, but doing it without the cringe, because all of us, pretty much all the business owners I know, and I know a lot of them, no matter how many years we've been doing this, still feel a bit uncomfortable talking about ourselves and what we do. And I know for me, that started as a very, very young child when I was told quite often, shh, stop showing off. And shh, it's adult time now. Or, you know, it's not about you. And all of a sudden, when you launch a business, you're told, well, come on, it's all about you. Show off. And you've been kind of conditioned that that's frankly cringeworthy. So I hope today we're going to take a bit of the cringe out of it. And let's have a look at what we're going to talk about today. So the first thing I wanted to help kind of establish is what actually is your personal brand. What is it really? And why does it feel uncomfortable? It's really worth understanding why we feel the way we do, because it gives us a better chance to change it, or at least challenge it, or even work with it. And we're going to talk about why clarity actually is way more important for a micro business owner than having oodles of confidence in talking about ourselves. So if we're doing it in a way that gives clarity to others, that's actually how we get our message over. And I'm going to give you some ideas on some low stress ways to actually start showing up and being seen that don't feel icky and uncomfortable. And in your handouts, you'll find there's also some next steps. There's some exercises that hopefully today will encourage you to go a bit deeper with and really spend a bit of time looking at perhaps why this is still challenging and what you can do to make it feel authentically different. So let's have a look at what personal brand really is. Well, I would start by saying that the easiest way to sum it up, I believe, is one word, and that word is credibility. And what is credibility? Well, it's this. It's what people say about us when we are not actually in the room. It's our reputation. It's built on our track record, on other people's experience of or with us. I was asked recently, as I think a lot of us are, on Instagram, if I would buy a product from a quite young brand. They said they love what I spoke about. We shared the same values. They'd really love me to buy one of their shirts and wear it when I'm out on the motorbike with my hubby. And the first thing I wanted to know is, well, why would I do that? So the first thing I did was go and see what their website looked like. Do I like the look of the product? But then I wanted to know, what do people say about the product? And I didn't actually look at what they'd put on their own website. I went and looked on Trustpilot because it's a good, fairly independent, we like to think, it's as good a chance as anywhere of getting somebody else's opinion of this brand. And out of a possible 5 stars, this brand had 1, with over 800 people having left feedback. You're probably not surprised to hear I didn't buy the product, because for me, they had no credibility. And when I read the 1-star reviews, some people basically repeated what others had said in their own words, but the sort of common theme was what was portrayed on the website is not who these people are. They don't care about customer service. And consistently, they said the product's pretty good. In fact, very good. But it took 5 times as long to get it as they said it would. They didn't answer my emails. When I complained, I got no response. One of them even said the person I spoke to was downright rude. And that is what people are saying about that brand when they're not in the room. So what else is it? Well, in kind of marketing speak, it's trust. So what we've just really touched on, what people are saying, has it built trust in you? Positioning. This is the way you position yourself. What do you say about yourself? What do you claim are your values and what's important? And your visibility. Can I find you? It's all very well having a fantastic understanding of what you stand for and wanting to make a difference in the world. But if people can't find you, you don't actually have a brand at all. Did that feel very harsh? Sorry. But that's the truth. What else is it? Well, like I said at the very beginning, it is your track record. And, you know, sometimes making a mistake is the best possible thing you can do. Because when you put it right in a way that says, yeah, hands up, we totally screwed up. That's entirely our bad. We're going to put that right. You often end up having a client or a customer who's more loyal than if you'd got everything right the first time around. And if we had more time today, I would tell you a story about somebody who royally messed up for me and put it right so well that I basically ended up as a brand ambassador. And if we do have time later, I'll share that story with you. It's your credibility. And credibility boils down to doing what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. Sounds so simple, doesn't it? And yet so often that's not what brands do. Small and large brands get this wrong on such a major scale and then wonder why they're not busy. So who gets it right? There are people who absolutely very clearly communicate, this is who I am, this is what I stand for. So when you think of personal branding, I'd like you to take a minute and think, who do I think gets it right? And what is it that I like so much about the way I see the branding? Now, this might be an individual, it might be a company, but I'm going to give you 2 minutes and I'd like you to write down who you think of when you think, yeah, they get it right, and what particularly is it that you like about their personal branding. Well, Bernie, you clearly sent the weather this way because the sun's gone in and we're getting a hooligan out there now. Very Welsh, Jay. You've got another minute, folks. Okay, so it would be great if anybody would like to hear some thoughts. Those of you who are in the Zoom can mention and comment and speak. Anybody joining on the live stream, you're very welcome to send me feedback and put in the meeting comments on LinkedIn who you thought of. Would anybody like to say from the Zoom group who you thought gets personal branding right? It's okay. No need to speak out if you don't want to. What I would say is that when I first thought about this, I realized almost all of the thinking I was doing was about how I saw people online. Take a step back from that and think about the people you network with or do business with, or your friends, or people you just meet and talk to regularly. Who do you know face to face that you think you absolutely get it right? Because they're living it in the whole. It's very easy to portray a brand online. It's not so easy to be authentic about it. And when we're being really authentic with our brand, what you discover is brand you is you. So, what your personal brand is not is just as important as what it is. And I certainly, when I first set up my very first business back in the beginning of the 1990s, yes, I am that old, when I first set up my business, I honestly thought your brand was your logo. And I think a lot of people still do think that because we're not actually taught any of this stuff. And your logo may represent your brand, but it is not your brand. Your aesthetic is not your brand. People say they can always tell my posts on certain social media platforms because they're bright pink and bright orange and teal, and they're very summery and there's lots of uplifting stuff. That's my aesthetic, but it's not my brand. My colours are not my brand. These are the things when we first establish ourselves, so many of us rush to do. I want my logo. I want my pretty business card. I want something I can hand out at an event. But actually, this stuff should be the last bit of the branding. You know, if it was your brand, there is no way huge established companies would give sometimes millions of pounds to very good designers to come in and change the logo, the colours, the aesthetic. You can change that, and it makes no difference to what you stand for if you have established your personal brand and people see past the fruit, which is what all of that is. So I'd like you to, we are going to get you doing things today. I'd like you to take another minute or two. I'd like you to think what 3 words you think people use to describe your business as it is right now. And I'd like you to be honest and note down, are these the words you want them to use? Or are they the words you think they're using and you have a bit of work to do to shift that? So what 3 words do you think people would use right now, today, to describe your business? It's hard, isn't it, to be objective about ourselves? Most of you will probably have been more critical with those 3 words than your clients or even potential clients would be. But be honest with yourselves as much as you can. If these are not the 3 words you would like to have people constantly be saying about your business, what are the 3 words? It is up to you to get them using those words, and we're going to look at how you can do that in lots of the things we're going to talk about today. Now, I'd love to spend a bit of time talking about why all of this feels rather uncomfortable. It's largely because of 3 things: fear, confusion, and perfectionism or comparison with others. This is touchy-feely. There's nothing we can do about this. It just is. It makes us feel. And feelings and business is something that for years we've been taught don't really belong together, which is nonsense. Just to be very clear, it's nonsense. You are a micro business owner. Your business pretty much becomes not your life, I hope, because I hope you have other things that fulfill that need, but it does become your obsession. It does take up a huge amount of your time, your effort, your energy. You dream about succeeding. You dream about the client who's going to find you. And if you're telling me that isn't all about feels and feeling and emotion, then I don't think you're being honest. It is absolutely about feelings. And we are taught from a very, very young age how we're supposed to react in certain situations. And talking about ourselves is one of the things we are taught nothing about that's positive. We are only given this constant message of be small, don't show off, it's not about you. And I don't think this was just me. In fact, I know it wasn't just me, because I hear all the time from people I work with how uncomfortable this makes them feel. You know, I mentioned that I've been working for myself since the early 1990s. Of course, in my brain, that's 10 years ago. But I realise it's a long time, and I still feel uncomfortable. The day I say I don't feel uncomfortable about this anymore, I think somebody needs to have a word with me. So let's explore the 3 areas. And fear, which we're going to start with, you will find in your downloaded workbook towards the back of this, there is a section for you to work on where you look a bit more deeply at what your fears might be. And we're going to start on that here today, but I appreciate this is a big area. So please, if anybody feels uncomfortable, if this feels too much, just step away. This session is being recorded. You can come back and watch it later. Let's talk about what we are fearful of. I think a major part of our fear is judgment from others. And I often say jokingly, but I'm very sincere when I say that I'm very grateful social media did not exist when I was a teenager. I can't imagine growing up under the kind of microcosm of intensity, actually, that teenagers in particular, but young adults and business owners grow up with now. This sense that every single thing you put out there is being judged, it is overwhelming, and it's so oppressive. I wonder how many times in a week you find yourself producing something, looking at it, thinking, yeah, I've done it. It's great. I'm going to use it. And then in comes that little tiny bit of doubt. But what are other people going to think? Is it appropriate? Is it good enough? What if they put comments that are negative? What if they're right? What if it's rubbish? And you spiral very, very quickly because you are being or feeling like you're being judged from every single angle. Now, then there comes the fear of being pushy. I'm incredibly lucky. My daughter Hannah, who's a very experienced virtual assistant, gosh, I think it must be 16 years this year she's had her business, recently said to me, you know, it is okay to promote yourself in the free bulletin that you produce. You're giving people really good content, Mum. It's genuinely helpful. It would be all right to include your own promotional couple of items every time you put out the newsletter. And my fear was, but doesn't that make me pushy? So even after all this time, I have to be reminded that's just my own fear. Nobody who's reading my bulletin is going to feel they have to click on the link that goes to a product I have for sale. They can see it's there, and if they wish to click, that's up to them. But I'm not being pushy by including that button. Now, being seen as a show-off, I am very reluctant to stereotype by gender. I think that's a big mistake in life that we do a lot. My own experience as a cis woman, and particularly as a child, was that we were often told that we were showing off, when frankly we were behaving just like our brothers or our male friends. And so it became something that we felt very conscious of, to the point of being over exaggerated about it. And showing off could mean turning up in an outfit that was new. Oh, I don't want to tell anybody I just bought this and I love it. That would be showing off. So how on earth can we be expected to say, I've got a fabulous business, you should come and have a look and learn more, without feeling, oh, gosh, aren't I showing off? Can you imagine being laughed at? Being told, well, you claim to be an expert on that. You said 90 minutes of my time on a Friday morning would be well spent at your webinar. What a joke. Every single time I do one of these sessions, that's my fear. What if I'm not adding value? What if I'm not teaching them something they can say, yeah, I learned something new today? And they all go away and laugh. Gosh, can you imagine? But we're all carrying these fears all the time. And you know, we talk about fear of rejection and failure, but lots of us are also really afraid to succeed. What if they love it? What if they want more? What if I'm actually good at this? What if my product is a game changer? Oh my goodness, then what would I do? And all of this is perfectly normal. Now, confusion exists for the simple reason nobody ever told you the rules, did they? I don't think I know a single business owner who says, yeah, I started my business with absolute clarity. about how I was supposed to talk about my business, present my business, get people to buy my product. I don't think any of us felt that because we weren't taught the rules. Nobody has ever said, these are the things you are allowed to say. It's okay to go out there and tell everybody you're brilliant if you have proof. It's okay to go out there and be really enthusiastic about what you do and say, I have evidence that I change lives. It's okay to turn up and rave about your business because you've just launched it and it's the most exciting achievement of your life. But nobody told you that. And then you're afraid, but how much is it okay to share? We're bombarded with messages all the time. Share, tell your story, be real, be vulnerable. I love the talk by Brené Brown on vulnerability. I genuinely think it's a life changer. But just how vulnerable is it okay to be? There's been a lot happening on LinkedIn at the moment where people have shared their life experience. And some of the comments are beautifully supportive and talk about how empowering and inspiring they are. And other comments appear that say, why should we care? This is LinkedIn, not Facebook. Don't tell me about this happening to you or that happening to someone you love. We're here to talk about business. And what happens? That person thinks, oh, I overshared. I got it wrong. I won't do that again. And it adds to that sense of confusion. And of course, it adds to the fear. And when is it too much? Is there a line? Is there a point at which we say, no, you see, you blew it. You actually did blow it there. And now there's no coming back from that. What does that even look like? You know, we live in a society where, in some examples, the more extreme and the more you are too much, the more successful you will be. And that if you're not sharing and you're not being a bit over the top, you're never going to get heard. It is very confusing, isn't it? And I think this is the biggest blocker of them all for us. This idea of comparing ourselves to others or seeking some kind of level of perfection. There is an expression, comparison is the thief of joy. It's an expression for a reason. It's true. Comparing yourself to somebody else who does what you do is never going to end well, particularly when you are a micro business, because it's all on you. It's a burden, isn't it? It feels quite heavy sometimes, but it is all on us. We are the best thing and the worst thing about our business. Take that in for a minute. You are the best thing and the worst thing about your business. So how on earth are you ever going to be enough? How do you stop telling yourself, you know what? Everybody else has more experience than I do. They've got more testimonials than I have. Oh, they clearly spent more money on their website than I can. Everybody else has more followers than I do. Why am I bothering? What's the point in sharing on this platform and trying to get my messaging out there? I've only got 50 people listening. Many, many years ago, I used to write a blog. This is going back to the early 90s, before most people really were blogging. And by the way, if you're not blogging, please make that the one thing you change in July. Start a blog. As a micro business owner, your blog is going to change how many people find you more than anything else. But I was blogging and it really felt kind of pointless. I was blogging every month, just one blog a month. And back in the early 90s, they recommended that a blog should be about 1,200 words. So these were decent length blogs, almost a small article, really. And I had a fantastic business coach at the time, very direct, very supportive, just what I needed, whooped me into shape, as she would say. And I said to her, do you know, Helen, I think I'm going to stop. I think it's pointless. Nobody's reading this blog. All the other blogs on WordPress are getting more people than I am, way more people. And she did her little, I'll get out my tiny violin and show you how much I care about that, which is exactly what I needed. And she said, no, just stop it. Carry on writing. You have no idea who's reading your blog. I said, okay, I'll carry on writing it. And 2 weeks later, I got a phone call that I genuinely thought was her winding me up, because somebody phoned and said, hello, Dinah, I'm phoning from Richard Branson's office. Richard has been reading your blog and he wondered if you would like to come and write for his business blog for a year. And I think I did say, yeah, ha ha, very funny, or words to that effect. Helen, this isn't funny. Okay, I'll get the message. I'll keep writing. But she said, no, really, he would like you to do that. And I got to write for Richard Branson's business blog for a year. I had a badge on my website that said VIB, Virgin Important Blogger. I felt so proud of myself. I had a blog that got 34,000 comments. I was stunned and delighted, and I realised that my 42 people following my blog, the numbers were totally irrelevant. It had always been about who was reading my blog. So it doesn't matter that everyone else has a bigger or more established business than you do. As long as you're being consistent with it, you have no idea who you are adding value to. And of course, we always have this as micro business owners, this sense that they've spent more than we have. This person's website is all singing, all dancing, hugely interactive. It's absolutely brilliant, clearly done by a professional, and I did mine myself. These stories that we tell ourselves serve no purpose whatsoever other than to keep us small. And to think that you need to be able to pay for a professional branding package is just because the people who do that have done a jolly good job of their marketing. You don't need any of that to start your business. You may want to invest in it at a certain point, but to start and to get up and running, you need to be looking at your personal brand, not the brilliant, clever way you can then create a logo and make a beautiful website or a fabulous business card. Really, the main reason this all feels so uncomfortable is because you have been taught to be completely the opposite of the things you need or feel you need to be to promote a business. We have been taught to be small. I have a very, very dear friend, somebody I worked with, crikey, yes, back in the late 80s, even longer ago, who's based in India. And he has a son who's quite an internet sensation now over there and does unbelievably ridiculous, dangerous, crazy things on video. I think he's got 4.5 million followers on TikTok. And I was communicating with him a little while back. We message a lot through LinkedIn, actually, because obviously we're very far apart in countries. And I asked him how things were going, and he was talking about how proud he is of his kids. And I said, so why does your son do this? They're mad. Aren't you worried about him? Some of the things he does are so dangerous. And he laughed and he said, you so speak like somebody who didn't grow up in a country of over 1 billion people. And I said, what do you mean? He said, how on earth do you think you stand out in India? When there are so many of us, you can only be seen if you learn not to be small. And I love that sentiment. And of course, we have to get over ourselves. We have to feel that discomfort and allow it to be what it is, accept that it exists, and say, today, I am not playing small. So I'm going to ask you to think about getting clarity over being hugely confident about you and your brand and what you offer. You don't need to be oozing with confidence to say, oh, this is what we do and this is how we do it and this is where our values are. And if you're clear, people get the message, no matter how quietly you might feel you're putting it across. So let's look at how you can begin to do this. You need foundations for your brand, and they're built on three really simple but very beautifully powerful elements. And in this workbook that I've given you, from the beginning of the workbook, you will find there's some space for you to write about what we're going to talk about now: your why, your who, and your way. And this is the stuff that will allow you to build something you can talk about comfortably, confidently, because it's clear and it's simple and it has a structure. So let's start with your why. The reason you decided to do what you do, the really deep reason behind the work you chose. And let's be very clear, as a business owner, you made a huge decision. You may have walked away from a salary. You may have decided to start again at a certain point in your life because things have changed dramatically. You took that path that is the less traveled one. And you said, I care about this so much that I actually want to make it my business. The feels are going to start, but it's also what makes it easier to explain to others why we do what we do. So what is that deeper reason? What inspired you to start the business you have? Some of you will know that one of the things I do is I train people to be celebrants. And one of the things I love asking people who come to me for my training is why? What's inspired you to do this? Why do you want to be a celebrant? And the beautiful thing is they each have an individual story. Some of them are profoundly moving. Some of them are very funny. Some of them are just people saying, I'm ready to do something that feels like it matters. So what truly inspired you? And it may be a who as much as a what. Why do you persist? You know, almost, I would say probably almost once a quarter. And maybe sometimes it's even more than that. In some years where it's been particularly challenging, it could have been as often as once a month. But I will get to a point where I walk out of my home office, usually to go and find my husband, John, and I will say, remind me why I do this. And he always smiles before he starts talking and usually opens his arms and says, do you need a hug? And I'll say, I do. I can't take it anymore. I've had enough. And it will have been something that I feel is out of my control, or that I feel I'm not doing as well as I dreamed I would do it, or I'm not completing something. Or I've seen a big competitor who I really rate do the thing I was planning to do in 3 months' time, but they've gone and done it now. And I'll go out and I'll say, why do I do this? Remind me. And the next day I get up and I persist. And I've done that for, 30 something years now. Why? Why do you still get up despite all the setbacks, all the challenges, all the voice in your head? Be really clear about that. Why are you determined to succeed at this? There's something at the end of that. The success leads to what? And sometimes we forget that actually we are determined to succeed for our family, for our friends, for our sanity. What is it really? What is it? It's never as simple as paying a bill. You'd get a job if that's what it was really about. It's more than that. And why do you love what you do? And by the way, if you're thinking, I'm not sure I do at the moment, I may have fallen out of love with it a bit, that's okay. That's perfectly and absolutely normal. I think I fall out of love with what I do probably once in every 36 hours, usually for about 5 minutes. And then I remember. But just be honest with yourself. Why do I love this? And when you can communicate these things behind your why, people can't help but be engaged by that. Now, your who. Understanding who your who is, gosh, that sounded funny, who your who is, I feel a song coming on. Understanding who your who is when you start to actually discover the business can connect with the right people. And knowing who we resonate with is a great place to start for this. We talk about ideal clients, target market, finding our niche. And very rarely do we talk about the feeling part of that. But I think that's when we have the greatest success, is when we genuinely resonate with others. Who do you resonate with? Look at those people. What is it about them that makes you feel energetic, brought back to the level of enthusiasm about your business you wanted to have? What is it they say or do that just makes you think, yep, you are my people. I am comfortable around you. I have no doubts that we share values. What is it for you that has made you resonate with those particular people? And are you looking for that in your potential clients? Who are you excited about working with? And that can be a dream client. Why not have a list of people you would absolutely love to work with? If anybody had told me that before I got that phone call saying, hey, come and blog for Richard Branson, you can guarantee he would have been on my list, probably at number one. And would I have believed I had a chance of doing it? No. But would I have put him on the list anyway? Absolutely. So who would you be really excited about working with? And if your business is a business that's been established for a while, ask yourself, looking back, who did I get excited about? Who was the client or the team or the family that I worked with and went, oh, give me more of this. This is amazing. This has pushed me to learn more. This has made me be my best version of me. Those are the people who deserve to be on the list of dream clients. These are my who. These are my people. We talk a lot about values, and I'm glad that we talk more and more about values as business owners, because it is the value behind a brand that often is the reason we buy from it in the first place. If somebody told me 25 years ago, eating Ben and Jerry's ice cream is good for the planet, frankly, I'd have done more of it. But it is. They are a hugely ethical business, entirely based on values. They have always paid above average wages. They will always give the right price to their providers. Their packaging has always, long before other ice cream companies, been recyclable. I love what they stand for. So I eat ice cream. It's the only reason I do it, obviously. Now, what do you love about these people? And this is where you need to be really specific. What is it that you loved about that client that got you fired up? Did you love the challenging way that they worked with you? Did you love the praise they gave you? It's okay to enjoy that. But whatever it was that you loved about working with them, or that you think you would love about working with them, be really clear about that. And what do you have in common? Now, this to me has always been one of the best tips I was ever given as a new business owner. I knew I had to link up with people that shared my values, that did business the way I did, and I wasn't sure how to go about doing that. And I knew that networking was important. And I went and I took part in quite a lot of networking as a business owner. And yes, I've over the years had a huge amount of business from my networks. I'm very grateful for that. But what I didn't expect was to need to be in networks where people had things in common with me. For example, I moved, it's 11 years ago this year, from West London, which you can probably hear in my voice, to Myddfai in West Wales, which is where we still live very happily. And I had a different accent, a different language, because Welsh is very much the first language spoken in this part of Wales. And I had to find people with whom I had something in common. And I joined a little local art group, an amazing local woman called Amanda, who brought together people who had a couple of hours every week. We were, the youngest member of the group, I think, was 19. The oldest was in her 80s. We really realized very quickly what we had in common. And it was a love of nature, of art, of being around people with similar interests. These people are my network. These people led me to find the glass group that we were going to do. Thank you, Bernie. That will always be something I treasure. These are people with whom I had so much in common, not to do with work, but to do with values and what we believed in and what we stood for. And these are the people who become your greatest advocates. These are the people who want to talk about you. There's a lot said in business about getting to know, like, and trust. And we're always taught that trust is the most important thing. Well, I disagree. I think like is the most important thing. Because if I know you and I know what you're good at, that's great. It's stored in my brain. It's conveniently accessible when someone says, do you know a person who? Yes, I do. I trust you because I've heard from other people that you're good at your job. So I don't have a problem telling people, yes, he comes highly recommended, or yes, she has a very good reputation. But if I don't like you, I'm not going to talk about you in the first place, am I? So find people you like to connect with. They're the people who are going to talk about you and who will understand these are the foundations of your brand. That's what resonates with me. Now, your way. We've talked about your why. We've talked about your who. Your way is completely unique. So are you clear about what your way is? Can other people see what your approach to this particular service or product is? Is that very clearly explained? And more than that, what's special about the way you do it? What do you bring to this work? And don't start with the, well, so does everybody else. This is about avoiding the comparison and being honest. What's special about what you bring to this work? And, you know, big clue here, it's you, you're what's special, but what about you is special? Is it your experience? Is it the number of years you've done this? Is it the type of people you've done it for? Is it your why? Is it your who? Is it a combination of those things? But something about the way that you turn up for this particular role is special, and people need to see and understand what that is. I'm going to have a sip of my iced coffee. Definitely a day for an iced coffee. And more than that, not just about your work, the product or the service, What's unique about you? And not as a financial advisor, celebrant, coach. No, you as a person. What is unique about you? And this is the bit you'll skim over. This is the bit you're already thinking, yeah, okay, whatever. Because actually, this is the uncomfortable bit, isn't it? What's unique about me? Well, I don't really like talking about it. I feel a bit like that's not what people are coming here for. I tell people I train all the time in this role as a celebrant, it's not about you. And now I'm saying to them, well, it's actually about you. That's what people really want to know. How confusing is that? But it is what you bring that is completely unique in everything you do, that is ultimately the reason people buy you. And if you can't be clear about what that is, or getting comfortable with what that is, you're never going to talk about it. And if you're never talking about it, how will people know? But this is what you have to be clear about to have a strong foundation for your branding. How do your clients describe you? What do they say about you? I remember many years ago, my business coach, Helen, who I've mentioned before, said to me that somebody had recently said to her, I don't think I can work with you, Helen. You come across as very confident, very competent. I'm sure you're brilliant at what you do, but you are quite expensive. And she said to me, do you think that's fair? Do you think I'm expensive? My reply was, no, I don't think you're expensive. I think you're priceless. And I really meant it very genuinely. She was completely priceless to me. She had changed everything in the dynamic about how I saw my own abilities. So from then on, she said, I'm going to tell people that my clients describe me as priceless. How do they describe you? Ask them. When was the last time you actually asked for a testimonial? I did an exercise recently. I wrote to 10 clients who had graduated with me last year, told me how much they loved my training, and then didn't leave me a testimonial, despite me asking a couple of times. And I left it and just let it go and thought, well, not everybody feels comfortable writing a testimonial. And then I thought, you know what? It's been a year for one of these people and we regularly communicate. I'm going to ask again. 45 minutes after I sent the email, I got a Google email saying, somebody's just left you a 5-star review. I read it and it moved me to tears. It was one of the most beautiful things anybody has ever written about me. I was stunned. I'm so glad I went back and asked again. Go back, ask again. The only reason this person hadn't written the review earlier was because life happens. It wasn't about me, it was about their life and what was going on. So ask again, how would you describe me? Or even, please, can I have a testimonial for that work I did for you? It would help other clients to have confidence in my credibility. And I think probably the last thing, but it is at the core of so much of the foundation of your way, is your values. If you are value driven, that's very obvious to others. My generation, if you asked us, why do you shop at John Lewis or Marks and Spencer's? The answer really was because of their brand values, because Marks and Spencer's built their reputation on saying, if you don't love what you bought from us, you can bring it back, and no matter what your reason, you can have your money back. At a time when very, very few brands did that, and many still don't. John Lewis built its reputation on the fact that its staff were part of the business, that they all had a say, that they all influence what happened. And we're clear about what those values are, so we buy from that brand. One of my favourite adverts of the last 5 years has to be the Virgin Atlantic advert for its new uniforms. They brought out a whole new uniform with blouses, shirts, jackets, trousers, and skirts. And they said, whatever your gender, you can wear whichever piece of the uniform you choose. And we will never tell you that you must wear lipstick or you must wear nail varnish. But if you want to, you're very welcome. I love that they have the courage to say, these are our values, not just to make us look good, but to allow our staff to be at their best because they're allowed to be who they want to be. That's very big of a brand of that size. And that's one of the reasons that I love them as a brand. It's value driven. Are you expressing and sharing what your values are? Is it obvious to people who look at your website or your brochure or meet you in person at an event? Now, I think that having a brand foundation statement is an incredibly helpful thing to do. And I've given you a few examples here that I'm going to read to you. And you know what's coming, don't you? I'm going to ask you to spend a few minutes starting to work on your own. So one that could work really well for a social media content creator. I help purpose-driven brands show up consistently on social media by creating relatable, story-led content because I believe connection comes before conversion. What about a web designer? I help small business owners bring their brand to life online by designing websites that feel aligned, intentional, and easy to use. Because I believe great design should reflect who you are, not just what you sell. A coach. I help women in career transitions gain clarity and momentum by combining mindset work with practical strategy, because I believe confidence grows from knowing your own direction. And what about a celebrant? I help couples create personal, meaningful ceremonies by guiding them through stories and rituals that reflect their values, because I believe every love story deserves to be honoured in its own unique way. And I thought if I was asking you to do this, I ought to share mine. So my brand foundation statement is that I help micro business owners break through limiting beliefs and build powerful new habits and language that drive growth. Because I believe playing small is optional and success starts with how you speak to yourself. Took me about 3 days to get that to where I wanted it. There's about 111 versions. So I am not expecting you to nail this in the next 4 or 5 minutes, but I am going to ask you to give it a go. And if you look in your, here we go. Yes, if you look in your little workbook that I gave you, hopefully you've got these, you will see that we've had your why, your who, and your way. And there's a page that says bring it all together. And if you build your foundation statement around, I help this audience by or using this method because I believe, then I think you're going to come up with a statement that feels usable. Now, I know this is going to be in silence. Hannah has said to me in the past, I need to get a Spotify list for my workshops, and I am working on one. But do please take 5 minutes. I'm going to mute myself, but I'm not going anywhere. I will have a look at the chat. And I might stop screen sharing for a mo while we do that, so I can just look at the chat privately. And I'll let you know when you're halfway through. You're about halfway through, folks. If any of you would like to share your statement in the chat, there are two ways you can do that. You can share it with everybody by just posting it, or as a couple of people have already done, you can share it privately just with me if you would like my thoughts. But if you would like to share it in the main chat, by all means do so. Please do not feel pressured to do so. I can see some of you still earnestly writing away. Would we like another couple of minutes, do we think? Yeah, I'm seeing a few nods there. Thank you, Phil. I'm going to give you two extra minutes, folks. Oh, Karen, thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. I particularly love that you have said as if they were my own family. That shows, to me, that shows very clearly your values. I think it's absolutely beautiful statement. Oh, yummy. Catherine, that's gorgeous. And I love that you've said, I know that one size does not fit all. That's so important. Beautifully worded. A ceremony that people will talk about for years to come. Yum. How many people are finding this difficult? Good, good. Thank you for being so honest. I really appreciate that. It is so hard, isn't it, to write about yourself? I think one of my favorite ever exercises at a networking meeting that I did was I paired everybody up and I said to them, I want you to write the 30-second presentation for the person sitting opposite you for today. Instead of them standing up and talking about themselves, you're going to talk about them. And you know, it was the most uplifting, positive round of 30-second presentations I've ever seen. Nobody said sorry once. Nobody apologized or felt embarrassed. Everybody really, really focused on the value this person added, on the thing about them that was special or unique. And you could see that each person being spoken about was embarrassed and slightly uncomfortable, but also could not stop smiling. Because it's so much easier when somebody else does it for us, isn't it? When someone else says, but you are all these things. Saying it yourself, who do you think you are? Immediately in your head. And that's so undermining everything you want to achieve as a business owner. I can see there's some more. I'm going to have a quick look. Oh, Joe, this is gorgeous. Oh, yes. Oh, you see, that's so beautiful because I believe that we're only here once and love really is the answer. It really is. God, it so is, isn't it? Aren't we missing it at the moment? Don't we need more of it? I celebrate, commemorate. Oh, poignant. One of my favourite words. Taking the time to listen. Oh, these are so good, Bernie. That is gorgeous. These are so good. And look what you immediately did. Publicly, I'm saying something that I should say in private, but it's you and I know you love me. You instantly undermined it. I know it's too long. Because I can't possibly have this much good shit to say about myself, can I? Sorry, language. But we do that, don't we? I'm instantly going to apologise for having something really positive to say about myself. No need to apologise. It is not too long. It is your truth. These statements that you're writing, you are writing at the moment for yourself. Hello, lovely Karen. You are writing these for yourself. If you want to turn them into what we call a strap line, that little bit that appears under your business name that kind of sums up your offering, it's a brilliant place to start from, but they need to be one sentence that I don't have to take a breath for. So they would probably be about half of the detail. But this is your brand foundation. This is bigger than a strap line, much bigger. And it's not too long, Bernie. It's wonderful. I'm going to share my screen again. Go back to where I was. Where am I? There I am. Share. Too many screens open. Well done, everybody. I know it's hard. I really do know this is a hard thing to do. And actually allowing ourselves to not feel that we have to say, I'm sorry, I said something really, really cool about myself. And as Bernie instantly demonstrated beautifully, because it's what we all feel, oh, but it's too long, isn't it? I've said too much. No, it's lovely. Give yourself permission. So let's talk through a few low stress ways to be seen, to be out there, that feels comfortable. Because when it's comfortable, you are actually going to keep doing it. And when you keep doing it is when you get the results that make a micro business stay and keep working and keep functioning. So 5 simple ideas that you can start straight away. And the first one is start showing up. Be really honest with yourself. What are you not going to? What are you not taking part in or joining? Because that little bit of you thinks, I'm not ready. My business isn't established enough. I'm not great at talking about myself. All of those can be true, and do it anyway. Do it anyway. When we are a little bit afraid of something and we do it anyway, the outcome, the sense of achievement, the way it buoys you up as a business owner are priceless. Absolutely priceless. Do it anyway. And start with something local and small scale that possibly isn't even about business. Go and meet your local, bikers or cyclists or your yoga group. Do something that takes you out there where there are others. Be consistent. This is the key for me as a micro business owner. This is the key thing we get wrong. We learn something new, we get very excited about it, and we do loads of it. And then we get busy and we stop doing it. And then we wonder why things aren't working. And it's because we tend to throw everything into it when we should have said, I'm going to do this at a level that I can maintain. So when you find the platform where your people are, whether that's Instagram or LinkedIn or TikTok, help you if it's TikTok, but whichever one it is, don't say, I'm going to post every single day. Say, how much could I post at my busiest time of year? And that's how much I'm going to do all the time. because being consistent, having a profile that when I look at it says, yeah, last time they posted was last week, not 5 months ago, is the thing that will make people come back to you and look at your brand. Now, when I say borrow other voices, I am not talking about copying and pasting other people's content. But what I am saying is share things that either other people are saying about you or things that deserve to be heard by your broader network. One of the things I've always loved about LinkedIn's algorithm is that if you post something and you and I are connected, not just one of us following the other, but we're connected, if I leave a comment on your LinkedIn post, my network who are connected to me see that. They even get a notification that says, Dinah left a comment on this very popular post, because they think that might encourage others to go and have a look. So that's the kind of voice sharing that you need to be doing. Now, creating signature content sounds very salesy, doesn't it? But what this is really about is using your voice in a way that feels authentic and in a way that says to other people, this is me, this is what I offer, this is my why, this is my way of doing things, and this is who I do it for. Now, if you have not yet got to the point where you're thinking about writing a newsletter, I really, really encourage you to look into it. Whatever it is that you do, there is a newsletter that can be written about it. Lots of people would say, oh God, really? Do people really want more newsletters and more junk in their inbox? Well, yes, actually, if it's worth reading and if it adds value and if it's shared values and if it lifts them up. I regularly look at the stats from my own newsletter, the bulletin, which goes out every fortnight. And I recently noticed that my last 5 students who signed up have all signed up first to my newsletter and have all signed up for the little guide on my website, which means they get a series of emails and they have all opened and read every one of those emails. So the stories we tell ourselves about it feeling salesy or pushy are our story of self-doubt and lack of confidence and possibly perfectionism, or dare I say it, procrastination, which is what perfectionism quite often really is. So think about, what could I create that is content that is very clearly me and that would allow people to feel attracted to coming and looking at the business. And tell little stories. Tell people your why. Tell them the journey of getting here. Tell them the truth about how difficult it is to be a micro business owner. Tell them why you love what you do. Because as Joe said, it really is all about love. So pick 2 things, 2 ideas that you could do in the next month that would allow you to show up and to start talking about this brand and being and showing others, this is me, this is what I do. I'm sure there are 2 invitations or 2 groups or even 2 webinars that you think, you know, I could show up. I could show up for those. 2 a month. And if you pick 2 to do in July, let me know how they go. Message me. Tell me which ones you went to and what happened as a result. And how stressful did it feel to go and talk about you and your brand? So I'd love to give you a chance now. We've got just under 15 minutes before we're going to end. I would love to give a chance to anybody who has any questions. So I am going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to have a quick look at the messages in the chat. Toby. Interesting. Do you know, we often feel this. Do I need a separate message? If I have a business like being a celebrant where I'm covering weddings and funerals, how on earth do I communicate about that? I think you're right that they can feel like they should reflect different attributes. However, what I would say is if you take your brand statement to its simplest version, you will find it encompasses every side of your business. So if that isn't working, if that's feeling different, maybe it's because the words just aren't actually the right words yet. Yeah, I wasn't joking when I said it was like 111 versions before I got mine to where I went, oh, I've got it. I think I've actually got it. So keep playing with it, Toby. It may feel appropriate to have two versions. To think when I am working for my clients who are celebrating love and new beginnings, that has to be something I talk about differently to my clients who are sharing the love of somebody who isn't with us anymore. And if that's what makes it feel right, then it's the right thing to do. Hey, Catherine, lovely to see you. Bernie, how long do you keep doing without seeing numbers grow? It's very okay, great question. Thank you for asking this question. I think this is something we all worry about so much. And comparison is so the thief of joy on this one, isn't it? I regularly look at other coaches, trainers, people who do what I do. And every time I do, I am reminded that there are a huge number of them who have more followers than me, have been around longer than I have, and are published in journals, and they're authors and all kinds of things. And then I remind myself that there are people who think that about me. Gosh, she's done this so much longer than I have. Wow, she's been a coach for 25 years. She must know everything. God, the day I know everything, I will be keeling over, I'm quite sure. But that's exactly what other people think about you. How long do I keep doing this? What is the point? My numbers are not getting any bigger. The numbers are irrelevant. And it's taken me a very long time to accept this. It's why I shared my story about Richard Branson reading my blog, because the numbers are irrelevant. How many people know about me? I couldn't care less. Who knows about me? Now that I care very deeply about. Am I attracting my kinds of people? Do you know, every 6 weeks when I finish with a group of students, and I get very emotional on the 6th week because part of me is thinking, oh, this is fantastic. They've finished, they're going out, they're going to be doing this stuff. And the other part is thinking, I don't want this to end. These people are fabulous. I love them. I really genuinely get to love the people I work with. And I go out to John at the end of the week with the 6 students just had their last lesson. I go out and I cry. I say, I hate this. Why do I do this? This is awful. He says, yeah, you absolutely bloody love it, don't you? I go, yeah, I really do. It's wonderful. It is the best feeling ever. So we have to remember we're doing this for the people who are meant to find us when we are authentically speaking to them. The people who don't want to follow us, we need to be grateful for. Thank goodness I didn't get you in my timeline. I didn't get your negativity. I block people so regularly, not because they're being nasty to me, but because I see them being nasty to others. And I just think, well, blimey, I don't want you finding me, thank you very much. Somebody said to me the other day, bugger, I thought I'd got to 1,000 followers on Instagram. And then I went through my followers and removed the trolls and the bots. So it was nearly 85 people, and I feel gutted. I said, you should feel bloody marvellous. You know you haven't got any trolls or bots in your followers. I bet there's not very many people who can say that. These are people who've chosen to watch and engage and listen and learn about what you have to say. It doesn't matter how many of them there are. It matters who they are. I hope that helps, Bernie, because I genuinely believe that. Anybody got any other questions? Let's have a look. Oh, we've got a couple more messages here. I was approached to do a podcast. Oh, Karen, wonderful opportunity, fabulous opportunity. Love this idea. So, yes, always, if you get the chance to go onto somebody else's podcast, obviously the first thing to do is have a listen. Do I like what they talk about? Is it in line with my values? And if so, oh boy, yes, I'm going to go on it. Make sure you have your brand statement sat next to you. And you know, one thing I always do when I'm invited to speak or talk anywhere, I get, and I used to do this on a stage, so it's become a habit and I still do it when I'm sitting at a desk. When I was asked to speak on stage, I've never ever been somebody who's good at learning a script off by heart. It's one of the reasons I couldn't be an actress, I think. And so I knew I had to just talk and I had to know my topic well enough as a speaker that I could just do that. I also know that I engage with my audience, and so it's quite easy to get distracted. So I had a business card, and on the back of my business card, I would write 5 words. And I knew those words were enough to remind me what I wanted to speak about or of a particular story, and that they would get me back on track. Just 5 words. Karen, I would do the same with the podcast. 5 words you want to be sure they either ask you about or that you're going to mention, things you really want to get said. And if you've just got those words in a moment of brain fog or sheer, oh my goodness, she's just told me there's 1,000 people listening, you can just look at the 5 bullet points and go, oh, I remember what I wanted to say. It's very grounding just to have 5 things. And that's wonderful to be on a podcast. Do share, please, when you're doing it so that we can listen in. That'd be awesome. And I think at the moment that seems to be all the questions. Look at us, we're 7 minutes ahead of time. Would you like to hear the story about the organisation that really let me down? Now, I know some of you have heard this before, so I apologise, but I think it's such a brilliant thing they did. Bye, honey. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to share the story because they did such an amazing thing. And although it's a story about me, it's not really about me, it's about them. Some of you will know, some of you will not, that when I was in my mid-20s, I had a car accident. And I was told I would never walk again. I ended up being in a wheelchair for 11 years of my life. And during that time, I was an international event manager. So I travelled all over the world organising events. And I did this from an electric wheelchair. Now, when you travel with an electric wheelchair, what happens when you get to the gate of the plane is that they take your chair away from you and they put it in the hold. And you then have to trust that when you land in the other country, they will have looked after your chair on the flight and they will return it to you at baggage reclaim. So I was away. I'd been away for nearly 6 weeks, organising 3 different events in different parts of the US and Australia. And I was due to fly home from Philadelphia. And about half an hour before the flight, British Airways announced that the flight was cancelled. I was very tired, not very impressed. And I got out my credit card and I bought a flight on Virgin Atlantic, which I had never previously done. It was not an approved airline for our organisation. I wasn't in any way confident I would get my money back for my ticket, but I did it anyway. I just wanted to be at home. And sure enough, got to the gate. They took me to the front of the aeroplane, took my wheelchair away, put it in the hold. It was a fabulous flight. I had never travelled in Virgin Upper Class before. It was amazing. What an experience. Had a hand massage, ate my dinner when I wanted. It wasn't a set time. I just was raving. I thought, this is brilliant. And we got to London, Heathrow, and a gentleman came with a small wheelchair to take me to baggage reclaim. And we waited for my chair. And normally it's one of the first things out of the plane, so you wait about 5 or 10 minutes. So after we'd been waiting for an hour, I knew something was wrong. And after an hour and a half, a porter started to walk towards us across this big open area of Heathrow. and he had a trolley full of the parts of my wheelchair, which had been completely smashed to pieces. It was absolutely unrepairable. And it had cost us nearly £13,000. It was my legs. It was my life. It was my only way of getting around. And to say I was cross would probably be the understatement of the century. I was also very upset. It's a hugely emotional thing and very traumatic. And I got home about an hour and a half later, having filled in some forms. And I said to my husband, well, I'm never, ever going to fly with them again. What a bunch of hooligans. And he said, just before you decide that, have a listen to the answer phone. This is how long ago it was, because we had an answer phone. And I said, I don't care what their customer service team has said. I am never flying with them again. He said, just trust me on this one. And I pressed play and a voice said, hello, Dinah. My name is Richard Branson. I understand we broke your wheelchair today, and I cannot apologise enough. I have organised for a motorbike to bring the brochures of every available wheelchair in the UK to your home tomorrow. Please choose whichever one you would like, and I will, of course, arrange to get it to you as quickly as possible. And he left a number for me to call to let them know what I wanted. And sure enough, the next day, about 15 brochures turned up. And I thought, okay, look, I'll just get a replacement. I'll just get the same one that I had. And I phoned the number, expecting to speak to one of his assistants. And he answered the phone. And he'd given me his personal mobile phone number. He said, hello, Dinah. I'm so sorry again about your chair. And I said, well, you know, I was gutted, but these things happen. And thank you for the offer. I'm going to ask you a favour. And he said, go for it. I said, look, my husband used to drag race, so I love speed. And in the UK, wheelchairs are restricted to 4 miles an hour. But in the US, they can do 12 miles an hour. Is there any way you could get my replacement in the US? And he said, consider it done. And about 4 weeks later, a £35,000 brand new, exquisite wheelchair that did 12 miles an hour and climbed the curb, which my previous chair couldn't do, arrived. Not only that, but for the remaining 9 years of service that I had at that company, and of course, all the flights I took were with Virgin, every single time I flew, one of his assistants would phone me and say, hey, Dinah, we see you've booked a flight. Can we organise a car for you at the other end? Oh, and if that wasn't enough, he put 500,000 air miles in my account, which paid for 3 years of family holidays. Now, I would never suggest you go out and break people's wheelchairs, but what I would suggest is when you mess up in business, behave as if you did. Because I will never, ever fly anywhere on a different airline if I know Virgin flies to a destination. I have never felt so respected, so seen, and so sincerely apologised to in my life. And I have to say, what impresses me most about that is not that Richard Branson phoned me, but is that his company was so empowered that every single member of staff, down to the guy who helped me fill in the form to report the broken wheelchair, knew we can take this to Richard. It's that important, because they're built on their values. I think it's a phenomenal thing. And it's one of the main reasons I was so hugely proud to discover he was reading my blog, because wow, what a way to do business. So thank you, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed today. Hope it's given you some food for thought. Thank you, Phil. It's been lovely to have you honestly connect, and that's been just brilliant, really helpful. Any of you who've written something today and want to share it with me, do so on LinkedIn. It's always a great way to connect with me. The recording of this session will be going up on my YouTube channel, and it will be where you saw the event today on LinkedIn. So if you want to pop back at any point, you can do so. But thank you all for taking your time this morning. I've really enjoyed the session, and I hope you have too.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Bye.
Pleasure. Bye, Phil.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you
Jo.
so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Lovely to see you all.
Nice to see you, Jo.
Yeah, you two seeing each other in person. Loving your emails. Fabulous.
I know, it's getting a bit out of hand, actually.
It's fabulous.
We're
Loving
going
it.
for a drink on Saturday.
Yay!